Budget showdown. We're awaiting a critical vote on a budget deal that could come as early as tonight. Now, the deal is set to boost government spending by more than $3 trillion, prompting some Republicans to say they're going to vote no. Here now is one of those no votes, Indiana Republican Senator Mike Braun. Senator, thank you for being here. Will enough Republicans join you to tank the bill?
I don't think so. I think that there are going to be enough Republicans to join the Democrats to basically repeat what's happened in the House. But I think it's a great opportunity for those of us that ran on that idea of fiscal integrity and that the biggest business in the world, I call it federal government Inc., needs to get its act in order. And it gives us a lot to talk about. These trillion-dollar deficits that get laughed off by many here and by even some liberal economists. I'm a finance guy. I know it's going to come home to roost, and I think sooner rather than later. And this is, for me, just kind of the opening salvo of what we need to do to try to change the dynamic here.
Senator Steve Forbes here. Was there any possibility of getting through the House, continuing the debt ceiling? If that was a separate bill, there's no way that Nancy Pelosi would default on the national debt. And in terms of spending, many times in the past, they just had, as we're discussing off camera here, continuing budget resolutions. So you just stay where you are and move ahead till next time. Was there any possibility of getting that through the House? Why wasn't that pushed more?
I don't think so, because I believe on our end, Republicans do end up holding the bag on all the reasons when it comes to, the debt ceiling issues, government shutdowns, and even take blame when it is divided government. I know where the leader's coming from and President Trump. We're in an election year. I understand all the politics. I ran for the reason of trying to do what we do in Indiana, balance our budget every year, have a cash balance, have a cash reserve, and then you do great things like long-term road funding. The idea of even tackling a big capital-intensive project like infrastructure can't be done when you're running your household like this place.
Senator, it's Kevin Kelly here, and I loved how you talked about fiscal integrity, because one of the biggest issues we're going to have is one of our largest expenses will be actually paying interest on all the debt we have. And given the fact that we should be in budget surpluses, as you just alluded to, as opposed to being in $1 trillion deficit, it exceptionally worries me. What is the number one thing we should start to be looking at on a budget-wise of cutting or slowing the growth of? Is it on the military expense side of the ledger? Is it on non-military expenses? What can we be doing here to right the ship?
Very simple. It's mandatory spending. That used to be Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security, when it was in the neighborhood of 50 to 55% of our total federal budget. That has now crept up because it's been going up, and the American public wouldn't believe it, but in the 4 to 6% range each year. So when you take other things through gimmicks that used to be discretionary, that's now mandatory, so you don't have to make the hard decisions each year. Those new mandatory spending segments, the things I just mentioned, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, interest on our debts now 70% of the budget. That we have very little control over the other 30%, and that gets less each year.
Yeah, well, Senator, it's pretty much bare bones, isn't it? And you'll be fighting with the Democrats over each and every bill in terms of how to spend it. They want to spend it on social programs. You want to spend it on increasing military spend. There's going to be more of these battles heading forward, right?
And it's the way we work now. We roll over on their demands on domestic spending. They do on defense. And here we are, another $1 trillion deficit. Right. When there's a reserve currency like ours that's helping keep interest rates low, that is going to change down the road. The euro was becoming one before Italy, Greece, Spain, and Portugal came along. That shows you what living beyond your means will do. Somewhere that'll change, and we won't be able to put it on the credit card, which makes this all possible now. And I've got a bill out there with Kevin Brady called MAP. It would peg government spending to a percentage of potential GDP. So when you go above it in a good year, you pay down your debt, you build a rainy day fund. When you've got a lean year, you can spend up to it. That hopefully will be a plan that catches stride, but we had sequestration, we had budget caps. People are very resourceful here to get around stuff.
Senator Mike Braun, great to see you, Senator. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
All right.